If you go down in the woods today, you're sure of a big surprise. If you go down in the woods today, you'd better go in disguise. For every bear that ever was will gather there for certain because today's the day the teddy bears have their picnic. Every teddy bear who's been good is sure of a treat today. There's lots of marvelous things to eat and wonderful games to play beneath the trees where nobody sees. I know that this comic book looks very cute and adorable, almost like there isn't anything that could be awful or cruel inside of it, but just trust me, you aren't looking hard enough. Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees is a friendly but vile story written and illustrated by Patrick Horvath, who is responsible for works such as the movie Southbound, and a one-shot comic called Free For All, which I highly recommend you read. Set in a world where you either donate half of what you own to live, or risk your life to compete in a gladiatorial event to keep it all. It's a story that's straight to the point and gory as hell if you're into reading that sort of thing. But we're here to talk about Beneath the Trees for right now. It's a story that came about in the mind of Patrick Horvath after doodling a bear toting a bloody axe on one shoulder, and then thought what that'd look like if there was a serial killer in something like Animal Crossing, and then finally mixing in the song Teddy Bear's Picnic to get Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees. Now the story, if you choose to stay a while longer, is about a bear named Samantha who lives in a small friendly town called Woodbrook. Samantha leads a somewhat comfortable and normal life running a hardware store for the townsfolk and gets along with just about everyone. However, things weren't always this simple for Samantha in the beginning. The year is 1962. Samantha has been traveling through Germany in hopes of discovering who she is meant to become. Lately, she's felt starved for that answer, and everywhere she finds herself, she's unable to be satiated. It's when Samantha begins hitchhiking just out of Grafenhausen that a nice mouse by the name of Otto pulls his car over to offer Samantha a ride. Samantha asks to be brought to a place called Kloster, but Otto replies that the pricing over there is way too high, and that she'd have much better luck camping out in his private spot for the night. Traveling through a most beautiful forest towards Otto's spot, Samantha confesses that lately she's felt lost and sort of hopeless. Samantha's parents want her to return home to run their shop, but that feels too safe and boring, like she'd be giving up if she just went back to that life. But Otto replies that if Samantha was looking to figure things out, his spot is just the place to do it. If only he knew. Setting up camp in a fire, Otto says to Samantha that it seems like she knows what she wants to do. However, it's something that she refuses to admit to herself, and thus it's eating her up inside. Refusing a marijuana cig and choosing to turn in for the night, it's while Otto sleeps that the unexpected occurs. Otto finds himself tied up beside the lake just 10 feet from the campfire, screaming and pleading for Samantha to stop whatever is about to happen and to be let go. But Samantha, now more sure than ever, just says that she wants to try something. For as long as she can remember, she's wanted to take someone apart piece by piece and reorganize them, stating that tonight she'd like to try that out on Otto. Otto can't even begin to fathom what he's hearing, and before he can process it, Samantha finishes off Otto and begins her work on his body, feeling as if everything finally fell into its right place, piece by piece, all neatly organized and buried together. Samantha found something to live for and discovered that it didn't have to stop there. She could do more. Where once she was lost in the woods, now she had found her way and her appetite. Taking us 24 years into the future, Samantha now runs the hardware store her parents passed down to her. Samantha has grown quite comfortable with her double life, feeling more in control of everything than she ever did so many years ago. She runs the store quite efficiently alongside her timid coworker Charlie, and Samantha has become very self-assured and put together. She presents herself as a kind person, a good neighbor, preferring things to be in order and extremely tidy, and even more so in her other life as well. She presents herself in this extremely friendly affectation to diminish any possible perspective that she may be a killer in the slightest in the eyes of others. And this fixation of control is carried over into her victims, as Samantha believes the notion of committing murder is a way to shut down the chaos of one's life, and in having utter control over that moment, Samantha finds it to be an experience that quiets the voices in her head, always maintaining a smile of success and euphoria after each kill, with the voices also somewhat dulling out. A moment I found to be sort of funny that confused me at first arose straight after Samantha cleans up the scene from her latest murder. She's pretty happy with herself, probably has buck fever, and then this bear just shows up. The bear isn't like her though, just a normal bear, and the bear just waltzes away. I remember reading this and bearing a couple questions, but the most important one was why this bear was normal and why Samantha was different. Later on, it's established a tiny bit that in this world there are sapient and non-sapient animals that coexist. Anything beyond that is never really clarified, but I love that. because there's something incredibly eerie about not knowing why one is different from the other. Even more so since on the cover of issue 2, the same imagery is used to foreshadow the fate of a character named Cherry who stares into a butcher shop in surprise at another pig's head. It's something that begs a few questions, like, are these guys technically cannibals? Who gets to have a consciousness and who doesn't? What even dictates that? And apparently Jesus also exists in this world, so what animal was he? A goat? I don't know, but let's keep going. The story sets us just a day before the 200th anniversary of Woodbrook. Samantha is just starting the day, walking through town remarking that it's quite a special place. A place that appreciates lemonade in the summer and spice cider in the fall, a cozy fire in the winter, and a fresh breeze after the first rains of spring. It's a place where you can still see the magic in people's faces. However, that magic will soon fade away in due time. Sam, on her walk to work, passes through children lining up for school, Sheriff Patterson doing his uneventful patrols, and good old Martin always asking the same question over and over again. It's a town of kindness, and it's established perfectly that everyone in this town looks out for one another. Arriving to work, hours run by as Samantha either fixes up some holes for Birdie's float to properly run in the parade for the next day, or receiving various new canisters of paint that she plans to use for later. Sending Birdie out with tons of wooden dowels for the float, and helping Martin find his glasses for the 100th time despite bothering several customers. It's as Charlie's family drops in on him to get the keys for the car that Samantha leaves Charlie to handle the store for the rest of the day as she goes into town for her quote-unquote appointment. Driving through the city, she has a smile from ear to ear and even waves to people she slightly knows. But beyond leaving past the Woodbrook sign, it all just drops. Driving through the city, she establishes a list of rules she follows. 1. No playing around in Woodbrook, because if one goes missing in Woodbrook, it'd be the talk of the town for years. But in the city, nobody cares. People go missing all the time. And the other rule, to always keep it random. Samantha operates as a killer in the city by constructing events to make it look like there's something wrong with her car, waiting for an innocent person to walk by and notice. A fatal mistake made that they'd never be able to take back. Drugged, Samantha ends her victims' lives before they ever wake up, like a dream that goes on forever. Thereafter, she ties them upside down and drains them of all their blood so to never leave a mess. Again, it's that essence of control that reigns true in Sam's ordinary life and in her process for murder. Samantha only ever wants to be in control of one perfect moment, where all the chaos of history and life is made simple and final. Whereafter she saws the body into sections and scatters the remains in paint cans beneath the trees where nobody sees. This is a guttural sight for a comic like this, and what makes it so impactful is the contrast of violence with the colorful spectacle of this world. You've been walked through a town where no one would ever do anything as appalling as not wishing someone a good day, and then it grounds you back down to reality, showing the most visceral display of one murdering the other. It is sort of hinted at before, but when it comes, it almost feels completely out of left field when it arrives. What follows is a comedic moment that's left to break the tension of the previous, and I may be looking into this too deeply, but I feel like these two crossing paths is meant to subtly say that they're both on a kind of routine. But with the fox licking up blood from a leaf, and Samantha's remark that nobody ever fools Mother Nature, that something or someone is going to clash with this routine Samantha has become so accustomed to. Arriving home to wash up before dinner, we're introduced to two integral characters, Lola and her son Nigel. Samantha has known Lola for over 40 years and remains her only friend despite the disease slowly eating away at her mind. And Nigel is Lola's loving son that quit school to take care of his mother whilst figuring out his place in the town. At dinner, Nigel makes a comment that they must know everything about each other now, and wonders why his own mom never left Woodbrook to see the world. For Lola to reply that she couldn't after Nigel's father passed, but that Sam traveled the whole world, and that she wishes he would do the same instead of staying to take care of her and discover his place in the world. Flashing forward to the next day, the parade is in motion, and all over the town people are cheering and celebrating, especially once Birdie's float passes on through. Only there'd be something terribly wrong with the float, as a sail would break off, slamming into Birdie, leaving the town in utter horror, as Charlie's body would be left posted at the very top of Birdie's float for everyone to see. Sam thinks that this isn't good not because good old Charlie has been murdered, but that there are now two murderers in Woodbrook, and if Sam isn't too careful, she could get discovered herself, making it a race against time to catch the real murderer before it's too late. The following day, the town is gathered together at their local church to discuss what the townsfolk will do about the incident moving forward. The sheriff, who is severely underqualified to handle a case like this, conveys to the townfolk as best as possible that Martin is the first person to be murdered in Woodbrook in over 40 years, and that the killer could very well be one of them, but they have no leads as to who it could be. This enrages Cherry within the crowd, who is mainly known to have always been the hothead of the town, pointing her finger at Birdie being the murderer since Charlie's corpse was atop of his own float, before storming off to amass more hysteria in the town. Samantha, figuring she has to take matters into her own hands before she could possibly get caught, seeks out Birdie to question him about the murder of Charlie. Scared to death of his own shadow at this point in time, enjoying a sour apple lollipop to calm down a bit, Birdie begins to tell Sam about how the night before, Melody was providing Birdie with lavender for the float. While helping, she displayed a clear allergy to the lavender as she was unable to stop her own relentless sneezing. Birdie, unaware, had dismissed Melody, feeling bad, and continued to decorate the float. But while he thought he was alone, he had heard a faint sneeze within the building while there was seemingly nobody there. Arriving to check on the shop, Sam learns that it's been busy all day, with everyone rushing over to buy deadbolts, door chains, door sensors, motion lights, security cameras, the whole 9 yards. Yet it's while going through their stock that they hear Cherry causing a commotion over by the coffee shop across the street. Sam decides to use this as an opportunity to maybe get some answers out of her by subtly rage baiting her, but Sam gets nothing other than empty threats and a shove to the ground. Staying with Cherry, she refuses to give power to this murderer by showing fear and staying inside due to the curfew, instead going out for her nightly jog out of sheer spite, thinking that if the murderer decides to mess with her, that'll be their last mistake. But Cherry couldn't be more wrong. Bumping into someone she recognizes on her nightly jog, at first she feels relieved until that someone pulls out a knife. This confirms to us, the reader, that at the very least the murderer is someone from the town and not someone random. Attempting to stand up for herself, the murderer slices off her fingers and sends her running for help. Breaking into the school and tripping over herself, she's ultimately unable to outrun the murderer. It's in the morning before school would begin. The principal finds the head of Cherry posted up in the middle of the entrance with the phrase, "Head of the class," written in her own blood. The news wastes no time capitalizing off of the murder to stoke more fear into the town for increased viewing, while everyone in the town believes the sheriff to be completely incompetent for letting another of the townfolk die. Days continue to pass on with no leads to whom the killer could be, except for Melody as Sam's primary suspect. Spying on her for days while running her shop and how she runs her daily life behind closed doors, Sam decides to stage a break-in at her butcher shop to scour her home for clues. Searching through the home, she finds nothing at first, until she walks into the bedroom to find her husband's taxidermied body on the bed. Melody arrives home not soon after this discovery, talking to her husband as if he were still alive, and when Sam attempts to escape unnoticed, Melody pulls a gun on Sam, utterly surprised to learn of Sam's suspicion over her. Explaining the float and the lavender story, she says that she'd never be capable of something like cold-blooded murder, and that she had her husband taxidermied so she wouldn't feel as alone in her life, before telling her to get the hell out of her home. Now, it's in the following day Sam attends the funerals of the victims and reflects on her own vile deeds and how she's never really sat with the effects it could cause, like endless pain and grief in the loved ones, reflecting on her actions and wondering how many countless families have gone through this because of her actions. But in spite of this reflection, she still feels absolutely no remorse, instead finding it all to be quite interesting. She says that she can pretty much pretend to be sad so no one questions her, but as for anything else, she feels nothing. It's while sitting amongst the crowd that a skunk named Mary happens to be wearing lavender oil to make herself smell very nice. And while the ceremony begins for the victims, Samantha hears a small sneeze within the crowd, looking harder to find Nigel, the one sneezing, as the two share an intense gaze of complete understanding of who they both really are. It's in issue 4 that the town, where it was once almost a beautiful fairy tale land, has now become dark, desolate, and utterly hopeless, a complete ghost town. On the way to Lola's, Sam passes through the whole town with not a single soul in sight, and upon arriving, shares cake with both Lola and Nigel before Lola's illness manages to get the better of her. Nigel coming back to Sam after tucking Lola into bed. It's here that Sam confronts Nigel and that what he's doing needs to stop. Now, what comes after saying this is something Sam could never quite expect, because Nigel says that he knows it's been a bit over the top lately, but he needed to get her attention. It was in moving back home after ditching school, Nigel wasn't sure what he was going to do in a world full of fakes and phonies, until he started stalking Sam for a month, watching her every move, including what Sam would do in her double life, following her into the woods to see her entire ritual. Nigel had seen Sam's true self, and feeling connected in some strange way, felt a compulsion to prove himself to her to become a partner of some kind to Sam. But this does nothing but frustrate Sam. She feels feels a sense of ownership over the town and that the folks are off limits, like they're items to her, but finds it okay to do it in the city as if it makes a difference in her own psychotic mind. Nigel doesn't take this well and thinks of Sam as nothing but a fraud. What's interesting about this is how Sam reacts to the exposure of her double life, something that was her own gruesome hobby being peeped on by another. Where she felt in control, Sam realizes that she never really was to begin with, and to cope with that fact, she begins obsessing over the minute things. But the idea she was peeped on during her rituals and that Nigel knows where all her victims lay buried, it occupies her mind and amplifies the voices in her head. It gets especially worse when she runs the store one day to find several paint cans containing the various limbs of her victims, planted by Nigel out of revenge for being casted aside instead of banding together. And as a final nail in the coffin to destroy Sam's life, Nigel murders Charlie one night, planting his head in the middle of the shop surrounded by all the paint cans used to conceal limbs. Nigel brags about it to her face and even snaps a picture of Sam's expression of everything falling apart. As Sam is forced to skip town once the sheriff puts out an APB on Sam for the murders of everyone in the town. In the following issue, it's made to show how torn apart Sam's life has become, but how Sam can find a way to put it all back together, in what is perhaps my favorite issue in the story. Sam is now on the run, hiding within the city with a complete absence of control, and it's because of this that her mind starts to go a bit mad. Sam spots her victims that she's kidnapped from various places and then barely put together, as she repeatedly evades the authorities along with accountability, until she inevitably finds herself taking shelter inside of a cave in a forest not quite familiar to her. Reflecting on herself, she passes through a barrier within her own mind never crossed before, having to accept that what she does in her double life is also a part of her shattered normal life. She's always been a monster deep down, but had been in denial of that because in her mind, crossing over from Woodbrook to the city, she had always considered herself a somewhat different person. Embracing that psychotic part of herself, it's when Sam exits the cave with this revelation that she bumps into the same bear from the very beginning. The bear has just slain a deer. Not soon after is the bear confronted by another passing by, seeking the deer for itself. The two pit against each other for the prize of the deer and territory. Seeing the bear rip and tear the other apart to maintain their position of control, it enriches Sam not only to see, but also gives her the idea to fight back for what's hers. Arriving back and sneaking through Woodbrook to her shop, she searches and finds certain things to use to take back her territory, more determined than ever before. Meanwhile, Nigel, believing to have gotten away with everything, gathers all the evidence and photos taken of his victims and burns it all. Roaming through town, Nigel tries to be social with the townsfolk, only when everyone forgets his name, it's implied that Nigel chooses those people who forget him as his next victims. Even in the most innocent of circumstances, Nigel can't stand being forgotten and feeling irrelevant, comparing it to the fakes and phonies that made fun of him in college behind his back. Later, Sam arrives to Lola's house to tell Lola that she isn't the murderer and that her son is the actual killer, to which Lola confesses that she knows. She's known about everything, including everything about Sam. But despite knowing every horror Sam has committed, Lola chose to accept her as her friend, just as she's done for her own son. And yet Sam uses that friendship to her advantage to get back at Nigel. Nigel, arriving back at Lola's, seeing Sam's car parked outside, he thinks he has the drop on her. But upon walking into the home, he finds his mother stabbed to death. It's while Nigel is stunned that Sam sneaks up on Nigel and drugs him by surprise, paralyzing him. Falling over, Sam goes over how she used the drug Cure Air to paralyze Nigel, leaving him in a state where he's unable to move but able to watch everything that's about to happen to him. Having the police arrive at the scene, she tells Nigel of how she'll make it look like Nigel had killed his mother after realizing he was the murderer. And when Sam found all the evidence, Nigel tried to stop her, but during the scuffle, Sam had blown off Nigel's head with his own gun to stay alive. But before killing Nigel, she tells him that he was just an idiot playing killer, while she's the real thing, adding that she may have known Lola for over 40 years, but in the end, she was just someone that she knew. Lola both loved Sam and Nigel, but Sam can't even pretend to understand love or how it works. But Lola truly did understand, and loved them both anyway, asking Nigel before killing him if he knew his own mother knew what he was, and if he knew he was really the one responsible for her death in the end, before ending him. After which the Woodbrook murder case comes to a grand close. Sam had construed everything to the police to make it appear as though she was completely innocent. Thereafter, everything slowly comes back to normal. And though a darkness had fallen over Woodbrook for some time, it all soon faded away like one bad nightmare, bringing about room for new hopes and dreams to come true. Melody finds new love. Charlie's wife thanks Sam for taking her husband's killer's life, and the sheriff apologizes for believing that Sam was the murderer, while also desperately asking for an endorsement to help him in his mayoral campaign. But all Sam can think about for the time being is that it may be time to take things easy for a while. Maybe it's time for the old bear to hibernate for a bit while everything calms down around her. Sweet dreams. Something I love most about this story is its central theme of secrecy, one with how the title itself refers to how Sam hides her victims beneath the trees where nobody sees, along with her own personal way of hiding her secret murderous urges. 2. When the murders in Woodbrook begin to happen, everyone in the town becomes increasingly paranoid over each other, wondering over what secrets everyone in the town may be hiding. Like Melody, for instance, having her taxidermied husband around his company to help her cope with the loss, something she didn't want the town to know about or to bring her great shame. And 3. Lola keeping it a secret that she'd known about Sam and Nigel's dark lives, but kept it all quiet out of love for the both of them. And when Sam kills them both, it keeps her life as a murderer buried secret even further. It's astoundingly brilliant writing. It's even in the way that there isn't really a protagonist to root for, but more evil versus evil. In the beginning, you're met with Sam's dark urges and how she controls them. You see that Sam is a complete monster, but what hooks you in, I feel like, is that where she's obviously a horrible person, she's a controlled and disciplined killer. But then when that sense of control is threatened, Sam doesn't seek to stop the new murderer because they're hurting the townsfolk. Sam hunts down the murderer for the sake of self-preservation. Now, if I could compare it to anything, the story is like what if Dexter was set in a world of teddy bears and rainbows with the whole game of cat and mouse. Only instead of Sam killing killers, she just picks at random. A clear distinction Patrick Horvath wanted to make from the get-go. So to make it a serial killer versus serial killer story, Patrick Horvath made the story based in a small town with the simple premise of it really being a thing of this town ain't big enough for the two of us, which gets all tied up in the end with Sam finally getting her hands on Nigel by murdering Lola with barely a shred of remorse. It's through this you realize that there isn't a single redeemable quality about her. She's willing to do anything for control. Sam literally displays that she's a sheer monster through and through. And I mean, Nigel isn't any better by any shred of the imagination. This guy kills people because they can't remember his name, but there was at least some line he was never willing to cross. Sam was just the monster without a line, and in the end, that's why she'll be the one who gets to keep on killing. It's extremely dark and unsettling to think about, and by the end you're left with the feeling, at least to me, that Sam should have been caught and hope no one else falls victim to her, but that's highly doubtful. Or maybe not. See, because there's actually a sequel for this comic coming out in July of this year, with the premise being about the Duck from the beginning's sister tracking down the real killer who took her brother's life 8 years later. Because something doesn't quite add up with the paint cans and the blatant murders in Woodbrook. It's a series I do genuinely look forward to reading very soon, and one I wanted to bring to y'all's attention because it's a pretty unsettling story hiding in plain sight. Yeah, I did it. I said the title. But I hope y'all like this video. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, visit my socials, and as always, I'll catch y'all on the flip side.